Hey, what's up? This is Seth Green, and you are listening to Somewhere in Vegas with Mark, and I am so hot, I would desperately like a glass of water. Please, please, give me some water.
This is Cindy Preston, and I'm with Mark on Somewhere in Vegas.
Hi, this is Melissa Peterman from CMT's The Singing Bee and the television show Reba. And I have to tell you, I just have to get it off my chest, I love Somewhere in Vegas with Mark.
Hi there. This is Faith Roscoe from General Hospital. You're listening to Mark on Somewhere in Vegas. And you better watch out. We know how to find you if you're not listening.
Hi, this is Shannon Egan from Whippet, and I love Somewhere in Vegas with Mark.
Hey, this is Lee Allen Baker with Somewhere in Vegas, talking with Mark with a Q.
This is Courtney Cronin. You're listening to Somewhere in Vegas with your host, Mark, and I would make sure to listen every week because he's a sure bet.
Hey, this is the Money Man, Eddie Money. I got 2 tickets to Paradise, and it's, you know what? It's Somewhere in Vegas. And what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Hi, this is Crystal Gale, and I love Somewhere in Vegas with Mark.
Hi, this is Terry Nunn from Berlin, and you're listening to Mark Somewhere in Vegas.
Hi, this is Miracle Laurie from Joss Whedon's Dollhouse. There are 3 flowers in a vase, and I'm listening to Somewhere in Vegas with Mark.
Hi, this is Erin Hill, and you are listening to Mark on Blog Talk Radio and Somewhere in Vegas. Mark is a great guy.
Hi, this is Sean Pulaski. I'm still trying to figure out Mark Pico's sexuality, but I know you're listening to Somewhere Live in Vegas.
Here you go, Mark. I'm sorry. I thought you were she. I'm sorry. Get out of the tent. Let's get out of here.
Hey, this is Lance and Anna from Free Radio. And Anna?
And you're listening to Somewhere in Vegas.
Yes.
My favorite.
You know, that's usually what happens with me. I go to Vegas and I get lost, and so I end up somewhere in Vegas.
Somewhere in Vegas.
But I just don't know where it is.
Not quite sure.
Yeah, word.
Get ready. It's going to be hot. It's in Vegas. Check out Mark. Be there or be square.
My guest at this time is a very brilliant songwriter. He is one half of the duo 10 Penny Gypsy. Their new album, Fugitive Hearts, is currently out on release, and their single Making Headway will be premiering coming up next month in January. We're here with Justin. How you doing, Justin?
Hey, good, Mark. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, tell me, this was a very interesting story just between you and Laura getting together. You both were really solid solo artists, and you guys kind of came together. Tell me a little bit about that story, how that came about.
Well, I tell you, we had both been in separate bands and had a solo career, had recorded with other people, and we actually met at a songwriter festival here in Arkansas. And this is no lie, I didn't know who she was, but they had the potluck line back in the green room back there, and she came through the line, and she had a plate of food, and she sat down in this lawn chair, and it gave way with her, and food went everywhere. And I tell her that I was attracted to her from that very, very moment.
I mean, it's interesting. I always like to talk a little bit about songwriters and their processes and how they come up with a song. Is it a situation where music comes first? Is it the lyrics come first? Is it sometimes a combination of both? Tell me a little bit about your songwriting process.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, as songwriters, sometimes it's really hard to explain. I think some people are just kind of gifted with it, either that side of the brain or whatever. I don't know what it is, but I know that I grew up as an only child, and I spent a lot of time by myself. And I think that the development of imagination has really turned out to be a strong tool for myself. I don't write necessarily autobiographical. I don't write formulaic. But I'm able to put myself in imaginary positions and imaginary places. I think that's a big tool too. Most of the time, though, I come up with a picked melody line, just chording the guitar. And I'm one of those guys that kind of hums over it as well. And I always have kind of a list of song titles that I want to work on. And it's just kind of an organic process from there,
Yeah, I was something that I talked to a lot of songwriters about, the idea that they may have an idea that hasn't quite developed yet that they maybe not have on their next album, but wait for a situation where either they get an inspiration or they figure out that it's a perfect spot for a certain type of album as well. I'm pretty sure that has happened to you, right?
Yes, absolutely. You know, a lot of the songs that I seem to come up with too are kind of constructed for the sound of the lyric, not necessarily the meaning of the lyric. And I kind of attribute that to, I was strongly influenced by Gordon Lightfoot, James Taylor, and those guys. And the construction of each separate line to sound good, you know, whether it's the like sounds or the like rhyming or whatever. Sometimes something will just sound better to me another way, and it'll change the words and totally change the meaning of the song. So yeah, I come from that folk singer songwriter, influence of the 70s, very much so.
What's probably the quickest that you've written a song?
I can remember I lived in Jacksonville, Florida back about almost 25 years ago. And I can remember writing down one line. It was a song called The Mother Lode that I recorded on one of my first albums a long time ago. And I literally still tell people that it was like a blackout process. Okay. It was like I came to about an hour and a half later, and the song was written completely on the paper, just a change here or there, you know, for syntax or pronouns or whatever. And I really I don't have any recollection of how it really got there. And it's only happened really once or twice. You know, a lot of the stuff you have to really work at and you come back to it later. But that was really kind of a freaky kind of deal, you know.
Kind of almost a streaming kind of thought, you know, where you're just kind of thinking, you know, one thing and it leads to another, and then it just magically happens where at the end of the train of thoughts, you find a masterpiece, as it were.
Sure. And, you know, I've talked to other songwriters who, you know, obviously they must be better than me because they say that happens to them all the time. But I tell you what, it was a really kind of a surreal, magical experience as well.
You know, with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about order in terms of your tracks. I mean, it's a very important thing. I think some people have gotten away from the fact that they'll just put out singles, they won't put out a full album. But a lot of musicians nowadays, and a lot of songwriters, and a lot of music stars will have some kind of, you know, flow of how they want a certain album to go. Some people like to tell a story throughout their whole album. Some people do it just to have set a kind of a roller coaster kind of a mood. Tell me your processes into, you know, how you arrange the tracks, and especially on this current album, how you decided to arrange the tracks the way you did.
Well, I tell you, I'm still a firm believer, you know, old school. I mean, you know, I still think back of the way that I listened to records and what got me into it. And I was just so taken by those, you know, those albums you put on and you drop that needle on the first track, and it would just play all the way through until the arm came up at the end. And so that was very, very influential to me. I still believe in that, although I am told that's not how people listen to music anymore. But it's something I always kind of want to hold on to. And we did make a concerted effort on Fugitive Heart to make sure that all the songs were in the right place, you know, whether it be for feel or for theme content or whatever. And I believe we did a great job of that because one of the things that we're hearing from reviewers and things like that is everybody seems to have a different favorite song, which is good. And there's been several reviewers that have told us that there is not a song out of place on this record. And that's just so satisfying to me to hear that.
You know, tell me a little bit about the process between you and Laura. Obviously, it was a collaborative effort between the both of you. Tell me a little bit about that. You know, first of all, starting out on your first album and then going to this second album as well, and the growing process between you and Laura. Obviously a little bit of growing pains between you two once this collaboration is formed. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's really neat because, we kind of spun our wheels with it. I say spun our wheels. I don't mean that bad, but just seems we didn't really get anywhere, with the songs until we met a gentleman by the name of Anthony Crawford. And I'd like to talk some more about him at some point. But because, we didn't go immediately make a record once we first met, we really had a very good batch of songs that had probably been written over a period of 5 years for our debut album. And so for that, it was just a matter of, we've played these songs out. We know that people like them. So that's what the songs are going to be for the first record. For Fugitive Heart, we were so gratified by the attention that our first album got and some of the accolades that it got. We knew that we wanted to be a little bit more deliberate with what we put on there. And we still had a good batch of songs to work from. I guess that there's 7 of mine, on this one, and we co-wrote 1 and Laura wrote 2. But it's just the way it kind of came out. She's a very selfless person. We just want to do what's right for the song, which song is best. I think we did a good job on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really kind of cool process to kind of think about how everything kind of comes together and all that as well. And it's always great to have a good writing partner that's willing to compromise or willing to think about what's best for the group versus just what's best for them. So it's great to hear that Laura's that way.
And we have, like I said before, we have a tremendous amount of respect for each other as songwriters. And, the kind of blend, we come from different influences as far as what's influenced our songwriting. But it's turned out to be a really neat blend. And I think we both have recognition of what song works for Ten Penny Gypsy and what song does not.
Well, speaking of blending, I mean, how was it for you two to sing and kind of do it that way, and the other side of the coin, as it were? How was it for you to perform together and kind of find your groove, as it were?
Oh well, I mean, it was neat because number one, it was fun because we had become romantically involved, still are, and so I think one of the strongest bonds was the fact that music was our common love. And so to get up there on stage and to sing these songs together and to work up, the arrangement of a song she wrote or a song I wrote.
Let's talk a little bit about the studio. I mean, you obviously both of you have had the opportunity to have been into a studio before coming in as a collaborative partnership. Have you learned a lot from just doing studio work from when you first came in to now? And what kind of things did you learn from each other going into the studio?
Well, I think that's a great question. We there's so many great songwriters out there, so many great songs out there, but you really don't realize it. I mean, you can think, man, I've got a great song and everybody's going to hear it. But until you run it through that studio, I mean, that's where the magic happens right there. And Laura and I, did have experiences, with other bands and other groups and other studios. But until we met Anthony Crawford in 2016, I guess October 2016, that was really when everything took hold for us. And of course, Anthony grew up a child prodigy. When he was 20 years old, he was on the Grand Ole Opry stage with Roy Acuff. He was a staff songwriter in Nashville and happened to be singing backup for Tanya Tucker when Neil Young rode through town. And that was Neil Young's time when he was trying to piss David Geffen off by recording any type of music that didn't sound like Neil Young. He put together the band The Shocking Pinks, and he asked Anthony Crawford to be part of The Shocking Pinks. And Anthony stayed on through the internet, the International Harvesters, which was the country Neil Young band. Toured with Steve Winwood on Roll With It, Dwight Yoakam on Gone, and he's just a tremendous multi-instrumentalist. And he's got this great knack of